we have talked about our favorite time of the year on the ranch before, but what is our favorite time of the year for filming? All right, favorite time of the year to film specifically. When do you prefer the most? It's probably not when it's the coldest because we
Yeah, that's
last in the shoot episode we talked about how phones decide to hibernate. So
yeah.
when
Without
when would it
without
be?
putting on a healthy eating frenzy first, they
Yeah.
weren't going to live through that if we just kept going. But summer's easy. Equipment works. It's hot. It's warm. Maybe sometimes too hot. Spring, summer, fall, they're all a whole lot easier than the wintertime. And you know, we got some daylight hour issues in the mornings in the spring, and same thing in the fall. Usually the fall work though, once we're done about November, first part of November, we're fairly well, buttoned down, ready to take on the winter. So, but from, September and October, those are busy months. Um, and there's lots of opportunity to get stuff done, but you also feel that crunch of, ooh, I got to get this done. If I don't get this done, we're going to get into winter and I'm going to need to have gotten this done. And so sometimes you don't film like you should because you're just
Yeah.
in a hurry.
Yeah, I think there's probably two times of the year that you feel that the most. That's like you said, September, October, you're trying to get things like preconditioning, bring the calves in, sell the calves, and then it leading right into preg test. And then, oh, by the way, like this last year, we're bringing in hay at the same time and
Right.
may or may not have to start feeding soon. It's that type of stuff. And then the second time of the year is calving because you don't know when there's an emergency. You don't know who needs extra, love and care and attention. But then for me, when I've been home, one of the fun days, but the more stressful days for filming has been branding day because I'm trying to get like all the different stuff and show people and get things to make them look good, but then like it's not things aren't cooperating. So it's like, okay, it's a cool day, like everybody loves the brand, but then when it comes to like trying to focus on the filming, that is not a fun day to film. Like I'm trying to
Right.
get everything and all the angles and it's not happening.
Yeah, I think this last year, I think you were doing more of that than anything. And, um, it's a good thing we had a crew because we sure weren't getting any work out of you.
No, it's true.
Don't think it wasn't noticed.
I mean, I was filming a lot of people and stuff, and then you and mom surprised me with the drone. So then I was like, okay, hey, I'm gonna throw the drone up. We're gonna see if we can get some shots. And thankfully, we got some decent shots, which was
Yeah,
fantastic. But it's
yeah,
like, at what point does it turn into like, hey, one person's just not gonna be useful, and they're just gonna start like getting film going on, and
right.
I don't know, like something in the piggy bank. Like we might stem away from that next year, and I got an idea. We'll see if it pans out, or maybe the year after that. But yeah, trying to do more with less is kind of what we're trying to.
True. Yeah, more with less is right.
What other things do you like to like
Well,
specific times of the year, like specific events that you like to film?
calving is always fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed calving. It doesn't matter when. I mean, having those new babies hit the ground, um, without honky moms, that's always helpful. But I enjoy calving when it goes right. When it doesn't, it really produces the ability to have a lot of content that people don't realize what, ranchers go through. Trying to keep a calf alive, getting them to mother up with a cow, grafting a calf onto another cow. Uh, you know, we haven't had any real difficult pulls. They've all been fairly textbook. And those that weren't, when I was by myself, I got no film on them because it was like, no, we got to
Yeah,
get
that's
this
a
calf delivered before it's dead, if
I was
it's
gonna say
not
your
already.
priorities shift a little bit.
Yeah.
If you had a tripod available, I'm sure it'd be one thing to say, okay, let's just push play and then let's see what happens. But
Yeah, but it takes
most
a
of the
little
time, you
time
don't
to,
even have that.
yeah, well, I've got a tripod handy, but it takes time to get that stuff set up and get it right. And it's like, when you're doing that, every second counts trying to save a
Yeah.
calf, and it's just not worth it. So, maybe later on when you're closer to home or, uh, you know, mom's home or something, then the time happens, it happens. I can be out there at 2 a.m. checking heifers, uh, have a problem. I'm not going to stop, and it's cold out, and set up a camera so I can bring this cow in and film the whole thing. I'm going to get her in and get it done. So there's some things that you're like, dang it. But it's also a little bit more of the slower time of the year. You're basically feeding, keeping animals alive, and working through the snow issues. You're not building a lot of fence in the wintertime. So on the one hand, winter is the least favorite time to do it, but there's more time to do it at times, depending on the context of what you're trying to get accomplished at the moment.
There's sometimes some things go wrong. Everything doesn't go to plan.
No, shocker.
Particularly with the tractor last year, there was no pickup at all. The tractor decided it was gonna have a flat tire. Then I think
we needed to pick up to haul the trailer or tractor tire to town.
Yeah, that's right.
With no pickup.
But anywho, then there was also a time where I think it was the fall time before that Braden actually swung by the house and he helped you replace the tractor tire because it decided to go flat at a different time.
Yeah, that was
so those are a couple
one of the drive tires that are my height.
Yeah. So, a couple of big things, and then other times where it's the middle of summer and water decides to not work.
Mm-hmm.
Are those specific events? Do you kind of curse yourself when you're like, I need to film. I don't want to film right now. Like, I'm really frustrated. I don't want to do this. Or is it like, it is what it is?
No, because we're trying to do this too. And I know it's got to be frustrating for you thinking, oh my God, why aren't they filming this stuff? What was kind of fun is when you were home and bad would happen. And you're like, oh yeah, we didn't film that. We should have, because you're right in the frenzy of, oh my God, we got to get this fixed. So that was good to get a little perspective that time or two when that's happened.
Listen, do as I say and not as I do. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I see
that's
that.
Right. But it's easy to do that. It's easy for it to get away from you, even though you're doing it all the time, because, sometimes lose a well, and that's your source of water for a bunch of cattle in a pasture. The last thing you're going to do is worry about filming that thing. You're going to try to get that problem solved, figure out what you need to do. And if you got to pull that pump, you got to pull it. If it's an electrical issue, if it's a, whatever pressure switch, you're just trying to problem solve and get it done. And if it works, it works. And then you're off to, getting so these cows can get a drink or these horses can get a drink. And then when it's done, you're like, whew, that's good. Oh, that would have been good to film. But yeah, everybody just kind of understands that this is, you film as you can. That's not the primary thing to do. It's good to do, but it's instead of one, it's 1B or 1C.
Yeah. I got 2 questions left for you. What has been your least favorite one to film? Like, looking back on it, I know you don't normally look back at the videos that are published, but I know every once in a while you and mom do sit down and you've got YouTube on TV, so you'll kind of look through some of the stuff and see how it gets, how you created it, and then to see the end product, because you don't ever get to see it until it actually publishes.
Yeah.
What has been one of your least favorite ones to do/see?
Oh, I don't know. Probably the one that makes me look the stupidest, which is, pick one, right? I think one of them that was pretty important to do, but it was a royal pain, and that was cleaning the cattle guards out.
Yeah, that was a weird one too. Well, because going back to the wind,
lost audio because of the wind. Yeah,
there was useless audio. So I was watching this as like, there's got to be something we got to do with that. And then I was like, you know what?
You narrated.
I got an idea. All I did was I watched it. I set it up. I edited to the point where I was like, okay, this is gonna be the final cut. I literally, like a singer will like review their lyrics, I watched over that 2 or 3 times. And then I pushed record on Zoom to get a voiceover, and I narrated in those gaps. I had time gaps saying, this is what happens during this time. And I kind of like use those notes. I voiced over it, and then I hit that timestamp on the ticker. I was like, okay, and then Dad's gonna do this, and then you did it. You voiced over, you explained, and then I jumped back in. That was a little more inefficient, but it
Yeah.
got the job done. But yeah, that you're right. That audio was horrible.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of some of the conditions. You just work and you can't do anything about it. The funny thing of that was is here you're pointing out all of the unsafe things I was doing while I was doing it, like standing down in the cattle guard with the tractor run, and even though it's in park and the brake is on, and you're like, oh yeah, I gotta run over him and kill him while I'm safely in Kentucky, and it's already done, so who cares? But yeah, no, that was an odd one. And as you were doing it, it's like, yeah, this isn't, you just do the best you can, because that's something you don't do very often. Every other
Yeah.
year or so we're doing those, and there's
Plus, you
really
had
only
like close to an
two.
hour of film too. I was like, I'm not gonna let an hour of film just go to waste either.
Well, and yeah, and that was not because it was on a tripod sitting off to the side,
Yeah.
and you're just working. And when you're doing that, you're not working for 5 minutes at a time. You might be in that tractor for 10, 15 minutes trying to accomplish something, and poorly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the weirdest one, hardest one, I suppose, and
The
tough on
last,
your end. That put 4, 5, 6 times more effort into it to get it done.
yeah, believe it or not, I've had harder. The favorite one that you have with a couple minutes left. What's the favorite one you can recall making on the over the last 3 years or so?
You know, maybe just because it's such a success story is whenever you save a calf,
Yeah.
where you have foals. I mean, people love, and that people are going to love these videos because they have the animals in them.
Yeah.
And
The
so
babies, not
the
just the animals, but the babies.
babies especially, yeah. So when you're doing those, um, I like those pulling a calf, um, mothering them up, because God, that's an effort. Like that one calf, we I thought we were going to lose her. Um, and I don't know if we did any favors saving her. She's actually doing not too bad, but um, showing that you're out there for several hours and you're fighting this cow trying to get this calf to nurse, and the nurse calf doesn't want to nurse, doesn't know how, the cow doesn't want her, and you're trying to make this thing happen. And then when you finally start getting some success, when that calf starts to wanting to suck, now you're starting to get somewhere. But before, I was literally tubing this calf a
Yeah.
couple times a day, which I don't like to tube so much, but I mean, you have to do what you got to do. If they can, be able to start to nurse on their own, it's always better. And then when you start to see a little success there, and then the next thing you know, you've got them together. The cow still doesn't water, but you've got them together, and then you're fighting this cow, and the calf is wanting to suck. And then you got most of the battle won. But now once that cow decides that, okay, fine, I'm going to finally take this calf, they'll start slow. They'll only let that calf nurse when you put them in a head catch, and they're kind of captive. And then that calf fills up, and the calf figures it out, and they try to go into the cow and get something to eat when they're hungry, and the cow's not in the head catch, and she kicks the snot out of it, you know. But seeing that progression go from, I don't know if we're going to save this calf, to pretty soon that cow gets protective of that calf. And when they're like that, and she wants that calf, and she's, you holler, and that cow thinks it's the baby and comes running to her, and the calf can make it on its own, then it's time to turn them out and, let that calf thrive. And those are successful. Those are fun. Those are a ton of work. They're tiring. That's what wears you out when you're out there every couple hours throughout the night.
Yeah. Well, that's some of our favorite times, our favorite content, and least favorite content on the Hashknife Ranch. So with that, we'll take that conversation and put it out to pasture.